We are the Four Storytellers, scratching deeper into the fabric of our lives to generate diverse stories and unique characters using our wildly individual and distinct voices. So glad you're with us. This is going to be a fun one, I got to tell you. I'm Nancy J., and I'm considered the journalist because my background is in radio and television news. Go figure. Let's introduce Sydney Gilder, who we call the, what do we call her? And because?
Because I am one. Because this is my first time delving into writing that is not a last-second paper for my biology teacher. So, because it's my first time writing something that's serious that I actually want to do, I am the amateur, and I am here to experience all of our amateur and rookie mistakes.
And I love that you said delving, because of Del himself is what brought us all together as the Four Storytellers. And of course, Del is our, well, he's really the professional, but yes, we call you the
dramatist. I was like, what do they call me?
This is a pop quiz.
Not behind your back, Del. Not behind your back.
They call me the asshole. They call me the, but here I am the dramatist.
Because you have worked with Oscar-winning actors, actresses. You have done television, stage, film. I mean, and you have brought your novel as one of the Four Storytellers, which is really exciting.
It's kind of new for me, the novel. I've dabbled in it before, but yes, I can point everything back to the stage for me. The theater is where I live and breathe, and everything else is an extension of that.
Yep.
Oh, extension, existential. I mean, it seems like we're just really getting into this, and that takes us to the philosopher James Grady. How good was that? Come on, you guys.
Everything.
That was a good segue. That was a very good segue.
It's because I'm in the news business.
You're welcome for the setup.
Nancy, did you have yoga today? Because that was a stretch.
It's so when we have dad jokes on the.
So, Mr. Existential Crisis over there.
You froze me. So, James, as you introduce yourself, I'm going to leave and come back because I know all about you. So, do you mind taking over for a sec?
I think we can handle ourselves. We've been doing it for years.
I'm out.
Nancy freezes one time and we get dirty.
So, what are we doing? I mean, I'm the philosopher because I am a philosopher. So
you're full of shit. Is that why?
I think
you get an F, Sydney.
You're the most educated. You just kept getting degrees.
I did, and then I kept signing off on some of them. So
And you and Del have both taught writing.
Yes, I spent 7 years as a peer writing consultant and writing instructor at the writing studio at Vanderbilt. So yeah.
Oh, Vanderbilt. Nashville. Love that. My favorite city in the world.
It's growing on me after 20 years, but
I love it. I want to just get back there. Well, for me though, Sydney, I didn't teach writing. I taught acting for years before I would teach writing because I just didn't know how to communicate how I did it. It was so unique and individual to me. And truthfully, I thought, they're going to find out I'm not that good. I just steal. I just steal people, and
That's acting, though. Stealing. Yeah. We're all criminals in this industry.
I always say, I'm not a writer. I'm just a thief.
Ooh, okay, another great segue, because here we have all been brought together, and and because we come from different backgrounds, we're all writing different things. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to help you out there to find your voice, even if it's just a diary. Correct? It's all about writing, digging deeper. We've talked about that, and oh my gosh, as a journalist, I'm so excited because I got to do some research. And I'm
scared.
What?
Come in here with your facts and stuff.
Well,
Are you going to make us cry?
no, but I'm just going to say this because I don't think any of you guys know this. I actually was a research associate at the New York Times in New York City for a year, and on the editorial page. And I actually had an editorial published, no byline, so I could say I had 8, 9, 10, but I had one little, so I'm just saying that's what, that also, I'd already been doing radio and television before that, but that gave me a better sense of the written word and what was out there. So that said, I know one of the quotes that we've all known all our lives, and I know Del likes to use it, is a quote, and Del, this is from, "Never let the truth get in the way of a good story." So who said that?
Mark Twain.
James?
Who knows?
Oh, philosopher.
I don't know him.
Oh, I thought when you pointed to James, you're going to say it's really James Baldwin. So that's who I'm going with. My answer.
Well, I got to tell
Close
you,
enough.
here's what's interesting. I mean, I love this, and I love that Del had used this in class because it helped me find my voice as someone who is writing about their family in a memoir kind of setting. So, am I going to fudge on the truth a little bit and make it a better story? That is a big question that I hope we'll all be able to answer. But the best part of it is, apparently, if you Google this, if you go to every book of Mark Twain's and read it, apparently he never said this. Maybe he said a little bit of it, but this is not apparently his direct quote. Okay.
What?
Yes. I mean, even stories in the New York Times say that this was not Mark Twain, that this has actually been a misquotation, which is common as it mutates over time. Okay.
Who said it?
Well, here's what's funny. I mean, I'm digging deeper into the internet about this saying. Some have said it's just proverbial. Someone else said the character Nucky Thompson says it in the first episode of HBO's Boardwalk Empire, and they thought that's where it came from.
Oh no, that was.
I know. Somebody else said the 4 Gospels. Maybe it was a Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John quote somewhere, but it's not in the Bible.
Well, that explains the Bible. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
See, that's what's so cool about this whole quote. So here's the thing. Here's what I like. Always the answer. If you dig deeper into the internet, it is who said this? It's Mark Twain. Well, I mean, we've kind of come to the idea that Mark Twain said it, so it must be true, right? I mean, there's absolutely no point in arguing about it. It's just one of those things. However, it may have actually come from Irish origins, because the Irish storyteller Matty Lennon, in his CD of Irish stories called Truth and Lies, he says the notion of including an odd embellishment or two for the sake of a good story is entrenched in the Irish tradition, and that there's an Irish expression that supports this, and I want to make sure it's in the Irish oral storytelling tradition. The Sianke, that's Gaelic for storyteller, which I don't know why we didn't use that name. The Sianke, it's a storyteller often would say at the end of an Irish tale, "That's my story, and if there's a lie there, so be it, for it wasn't me that composed it."
Well, here now but Nancy, now as you're saying that this is not Mark Twain, I'm like, okay, my play, 6 Characters in Search of a Play, I attribute it to Mark Twain. It's streaming now on Broadway HD and Deku. Notice
Got the link right there at the bottom.
So I wish I'd known she was going to bring this up. I would have put the link so you could see my shit. But now I'm a liar. No, because you are never letting the truth get into the way of a good
quote.
Oh, full circle. So I attribute it to Mark Twain. It's his quote.
Absolutely. Well, and here's the thing. He actually may have heard that Irish expression, okay, because he was a miner at the Comstock Lodge, and most of the people in those days were probably Irish, his fellow miners. So let's just say he heard it from them, and it just snowballed into the perfect quote for what it's about, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well. Thanks for the history lesson. I stand corrected.
Okay. Okay. Any questions, class? No. No, but seriously, but regardless of who said it, because now Del Shore says it. So to me, it's gospel.
Boom.
You know, how far can we go when we're trying to write about the truth to make it a better story?
So I'll jump on this one because what I'm writing and the genre that I'm writing in, we read it because we don't want the truth. We want to leave behind our partners who are like 2 pump chumps, okay? And we want to read about a man who can last a marathon and let her orgasm at least 20 times before he does. So when it comes to the truth and reality and what you're reading within my romance novel genre, if I let the truth get in the way of a good story or of a good sex scene, if we're going to be honest, then it wouldn't be realistic. If he realistically threw her up against the wall, her back would hurt because it's being lodged into a doorknob, or like she'd hit her head and then she'd fall on top of him and they'd fall and the whole mood is ruined. So depends on what you are reading. But if you let the truth get in the way of a good story, then you kind of ruin the story for yourself. Like whether you're reading romance or whether you're reading science fiction or whether you're reading something fantastical like Aragon or something like that, and it also depends on what truth you're talking about, because truth is
well, yes, absolutely. And Nancy, I just when you, because let's be honest, we do a little bit of work. We don't just come in here and it's going. So when you told me your topic tonight, I pulled my play Southern Baptist Sissies, and may I read a line from it?
Yes.
Because everybody's truth is different. And so Mark, right at the top of the play, he says, everybody has their truth. Yours may be different than mine. And he steps into the church and he says, this was mine, or would it be this is mine? Because right now at this moment, fortunately or unfortunately, I am the sum of me. So it was, when he as the narrator, he was saying, this is my truth. I'm presenting my truth. Yours may be different. And when I talk about my friend Leslie Jordan all the time, and Leslie is so apparent with his lies that he literally has told me, he says, oh, when I tell that story, you're not there. Or that your story I become you when I give my version. If you're not around, I will attribute it to you if you're in the room. That kind of, and I say, fine.
Yeah.
Well, and we I think a lot of people confuse fact with truth.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times in storytelling, in fiction especially, and in romance, let's push it back to Sydney, the meaning of the story is more important than the factuality of the story. So what's the truth of romance? The truth of romance is this is what women wish they could have, and that's true. And there's a lot that's conveyed in that, right? The fact that the audience wants this in their lives tells us a truth that we wouldn't get if they didn't have it.
Yeah.
So, and again, philosopher, meaning, all that, is important to me. So, I guess I approach it from a different perspective. In addition to being a philosopher, I also went to theology school, and as a Jew, one of my favorite stories is this guy named Jesus and this guy named Pilate are talking to each other, and Pilate asks Jesus who he says he is, and he says, "I am the truth." And Pilate
and the way and the light.
Yes, but Pilate's response only focuses on the truth part, because Pilate's response, very much what my response would be. Quid est veritas. What is the truth?
Boom. I mean, if you want to bring in all the way to something as broad as religion, I mean, the 3 major world religions all revolve around a different version a different truth of what happened with this one man in Nazareth. If we're going to get that philosophical and deep with it, you have Jewish, and you have Christian, and you have Muslim,
Hindu, Muslim.
Hindu. Yeah, so like the truth is subjective depending on who's telling it, because as writers, we're human beings telling the stories of other living things.
And it's interesting, in our culture, subjectivity is a bad word, right? Saying something is subjective, you may as well be slapping someone in the face and say, you're lying. But in reality, right, we're all individual subjects, and we all stand in our own place, and we look at the world from where we stand. And so, my truth may look funny from where Dell stands, but, if Dell can rotate his world to stand where I am, he might see something new. And that's the opportunity that we give people as authors, is to let people rotate into our position for a little while and see the world like we're seeing it.
Yeah.
Even if you're seeing it through fiction.
Through fiction, yeah. But it's fiction seen through my mind. Again, if you fictionalize my story and my family story, you would tell it different. And it would tell me more about Nancy J than it would about the people we were talking about.
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of like therapy. And I used to think about and feel guilty about certain people that I talked about in therapy, because when you scratch a little deeper, you go, oh, wait a second, that therapist only knows my version of that person. That's a very different version. So in our work, if my Aunt Rita would write her version of Daddy's Dying, Who's Got the Will, let me tell you something, it would be a lot different, because she didn't speak to me for 7 years after that movie came out. 7 years.
Wow. That's where I need help from you all. In writing a memoir about my family, I'm finding things that I may not be remembering them correctly, or I may be, making my memory funnier, better. I don't know. I mean, is that okay?
Well,
Yeah. Well, like, it depends on what you are fixating on. Like, if you were fixating on, with your memory, the brand of liquor that your dad drinks, that's something different when it comes to the truth getting in the way of a good story, all the way to how did he react with love, or did he react with anger to a situation? Like, that's what sometimes I feel like we get caught up in the small details, where, like, if I don't describe the exact color, if I don't put the little things in there, if I tell little lies, will it ruin the whole story? And no, it won't.
Well, Nancy, I have to ask you a question. How many are left that would be offended?
No, there aren't. I mean, no, the people that I'm really writing about, they're not. And that's not, I'm not worried about, well, yeah, we'll talk about that later, like what will the family say? Because there are people left.
Yeah.
But I guess my thing is just, I just don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. I mean, if there's I wouldn't want, I mean, maybe I need to title my memoir differently, just sort of like memoir. Who knows, maybe it's true. I don't know. I mean,
But also, if you think about it this way,
as I remember it. That's the way you.
As I remember,
maybe that's the title, as I remember it.
because the way that you were telling it, it's not like
You're welcome.
It's not like you. Credit Dell, he gets royalties. It's not like you are watching a video that was recorded of your family and then writing out exactly what happened. Our memories are flawed and they're fuzzy. And so almost everything you're going to write, except for maybe a person's name, is technically not going to be true, because we don't have.
Did y'all write diaries as kids at all? I mean,
I did. I did.
So, but those are the truth, aren't they? As we saw them as a child. Have you looked back at your diaries at all?
You know what is really interesting? I mean, we're going way off topic now, because I found my diaries recently, and I was literally in my garage looking for memorabilia to auction off for theaters during the pandemic, and I found my diaries, and this has to do with me being gay, because I was a Southern Baptist preacher's kid. I started trying to find any confession at all about me being gay. And there was a part of me that I would not even be willing to write about at that point. And how crazy is it that maybe that's why a lot of this just spewed out of me professionally later on, because I felt so censored that I couldn't. I was just petrified that somebody would ever find it and find that out. That big bad secret, what I thought perception that it was big bad at the time.
Right.
It wasn't a bad secret, but it felt that way at that time.
Well, and when you think about it, let's say you had, let's say you'd written like your fantasy about coming out. Would that have been true? I mean, I think about like factual things that happen, like Sydney, you're a kid and you're reaching for something and your mother hits your hand.
Yes, she did.
Now, if you write about that now as a traumatizing experience that fundamentally changed the way that you approach relationships, is that false just because what your mom was really doing was trying to keep you from burning your hand on the stove?
Or touching her chocolate stash.
Yeah, because I mean, like in reality, right? If you're reaching for a stove and your parent hits you to keep you from burning your hand very badly, well, that may be their story. But your story is that actually like so traumatized me that I never really looked at being hit the same way again. Mm-hmm. And so, when you look at memoir, right, like just because that wasn't what they meant to do, your memory of it isn't true, right? In the sense of they weren't trying to hurt you. They didn't mean to do it. In fact, they were saving you much more pain. But that's not what you experienced.
Yeah.
And it never will be.
With that experience, especially if you are writing about loved ones or a character you have is inspired by a loved one who's passed, and you will never know their real intention behind doing something, you'll technically never have the truth. Like if my mom had passed when I was young and she had done that to me, growing up, I would never have realized, is she doing it out of anger? Is she doing it out of protection? Because I don't have the answer. I can't ask her. She's gone.
Nancy, do you feel guilt? Do you feel guilt as you're writing? Good.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. We've talked about this before. It's just, the people who I thought we were are not who we were.
Right. I mean, it makes me think of a very specific story because I can remember almost 30 when I was about to come out. Thinking, my great grandmother was the closest person in the world to me on my father's side. Y'all have never heard a story about her. But I was like, I don't know that I ever could have come out to her. I don't, I wish she could have known, et cetera, et cetera. And then I remembered what happened when I was 13, when a Baptist minister came to her house when she was home with having had a knee operation. And I was there and she was there, and he started talking about homosexuality. And I can remember my great grandmother standing up in the middle of this conversation, having just had her knee surgery, and walking him to the door and telling him that he should never come back to her house ever again. Because she had relatives who were gay and there was nothing that was wrong with it. And it never occurred to me that she did that to put a show on for me.
That is the boat. You have to write that. That is such a beautiful story that you remember that. Oh my God.
It happened when I was 13, and it never clicked into place what she was doing until I was thinking about my regrets at her not knowing.
Oh,
what a beautiful, beautiful gift she gave you, though.
Yeah. But the truth, and then there's the truth, right? And sometimes it's like peeling an onion, you peel back a few layers and then you cry.
Oh,
right.
When the knife hits the onion, I'm in tears.
Well, so what do you say to the person who wants to start to write? Whether it be a novel or a memoir or, a romance novel, or sort of a just like expound on their childhood and family. Where do we go? Where do we start?
I say, tell your story and don't think about censoring it for the benefit of other people. Because I feel like that, I mean, when I first started writing and I wrote Daddy's Dying, Who's Got the Will, it premiered in a 64-seat theater in Hollywood, California. And my family, besides my mom, who was a drama teacher, I knew that they weren't going to come to the theater in Hollywood. I was going to be pretty isolated. And well, then the movie came out. Who knew? And suddenly I had relatives not speaking to me. And I should have said, okay, I got to warn you. There was some inspiration here. And, but in that, if I had done that, it would have been a very different story. And it wouldn't have been as pure and it wouldn't have been as good. And yes, there was a lot of fantasy in it. There was a lot of fiction in it as well. So they couldn't come after me. And of course, we have that statement at the end of anything: "This is fiction. This is fiction, not based on anybody." But I say, tell your truth and don't censor yourself. That's my advice.
Yeah,
and then deal with the repercussions later.
and my advice, I guess, because I'm a philosopher, is as you're telling your story, think about the truth in all of its different facets, right? There's facts, and some of the facts will be good parts of the story, and some have to be thrown away. And then there's the truth that you're trying to convey, and understand what that truth is and how you are going to unveil that little by little through the story, and keep your eye on that prize. Don't keep your eye on the fact layer of truth, or the, or the who's going to get pissed at me layer of truth.
Yeah.
And make sure that the story that you're telling is the story that conveys the truth that you want to be understood.
I'm kind of ready to do a little writing.
But Nancy, you didn't answer it yourself. You didn't answer your own question. What is your advice?
My advice is,
because
I think, my advice would be to listen to James and to Del, to take it from them. I get that. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm writing. I'm not censoring myself. And as I read in class, and as we will be hearing through the ages, perhaps, I'm just a storyteller. I'm just telling my story.
But what I love about this piece that you're doing now, that is so beautifully told in your voice, is it wasn't originally conceived like that. You came in with a completely different take on it, trying to fictionalize in it, trying to make this, and you know what I have to say to everybody out there that's watching, none of it's garbage. None of it's garbage. That was an important step for Nancy J to find the voice that she needed to tell this story.
Yeah.
And branching off of that, just to toss in my 1.5 cents, be willing to correct yourself. Be willing to grow and look back, and because writing is rewriting. And so if you start from plan A and you end up at plan 26.7 at the end, like a completely different thing, be willing to make the corrections. And now when I say corrections, I don't mean
grammar, spelling.
like what we talked, we've spoken about this before with rookie mistakes, or with scratching deeper. Like, be willing to, keep saying the word correct, change, grow, learn from past mistakes. Don't just be concrete with your story. Just because you have the birth of one story doesn't mean it has to stay that way the whole time. Because if it doesn't grow and doesn't change, then...
And I think maybe just to kind of sum it up, and we've all been talking about this before, and I hear James saying this, be willing to share. Yeah. Don't be afraid to read your stuff to someone else out loud, or to give it to them, which is why we're here.
And to
Nancy, I want to say, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
To echo Dell's point that went along with that one, be sure you know who the right readers are, because Aunt Rita, who's going to be pissed off by your inspiration, isn't your best beta reader.
That's right. And here's one other little tidbit. Go and research those people who have written about their families or their lives. And I will point right now to Edward Albee, Three Tall Women, Pulitzer Prize winning. Eugene O'Neill, who was so scared of his family that he had it in his will that Long Day's Journey into Night shall not be produced until 40 years after his death. Thankfully, his widow said, okay, we're not going to do that. And then Mr. Tennessee Williams, who wrote about, he was inspired by the fucked up family that he came from, and he put it on page and gave us art.
Yep. Boom.
The end. Seriously, no. This is that I'm going to have some wonderful, wonderful dreams when I hit the hay tonight. Anybody else?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. Thanks for this topic, Nancy. It was fantastic.
Well, it started because of Del Shores, who quotes Mark Twain.
There we go. We'll see y'all next time.
Eat your vegetables and your fruit and your vitamins.
And drink your wine.
Drink your wine.